Hello, everyone. Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you. I'm really excited to talk about the trip and the opportunity that you guys participated in. Thank you so much for the opportunity to go. Thank you so much for the role that you had in supporting me, not only financially, but through your prayers and through just your love and your encouragement. That's meant so much to me. So before I get started, I do want to start with prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to go to Cambodia. Thank you so much for this church. Thank you for the heart that they have for the nations and the heart that they have for people to experience and understand the gospel. Father, I just pray that you would be in this message tonight, that you would be in this presentation, and just that you would be the editor of it, and whatever you don't want me to say or whatever you want me to say, I pray that it would just be yours. And we just pray that you would help us to just get some encouragement from it. And whatever you have for us, Lord, we just want to have open hearts in your precious name. Amen. Okay, so there's a lot that I could say because it was an amazing 6 weeks and definitely the experience of a lifetime. But I'm going to start with kind of a cultural overview, just kind of to give you some context for the ministry that took place and just to help you understand a little bit why we did what we did. And then I'll get into some daily life things just because it's interesting. And then I'll share about Roots of Grace, who they are, what their heart is, what they do, and then what I did specifically while I was there. So one of the most important things to understand Cambodia is that they are a predominantly Buddhist culture. So about 90% of the people in Cambodia actively practice Buddhism. So everywhere you go, you see it, and it's in literally everything. So basically what Buddhism is this belief that it's centered around these 4 noble truths: that suffering exists, that we exist in this state of suffering where we can never have true peace and freedom. And then they believe that we are the cause of our own suffering and that our actions cause us to suffer. So kind of that idea of karma is a big part of Buddhism, that whatever we do has an impact on our lives, and it impacts it in a negative or positive way. And then the third truth is that there is an end to suffering, and it's called enlightenment, and it's a state of complete peace and freedom. And the fourth truth is that there is a path to end suffering, and it's called the Eightfold Path. And so it's basically this idea that if all of your life can come into an alignment and you have right thinking, right ethics, right morality, the right occupation, the right everything, then you can reach that state. So from my observation, it's a lot of fear-based striving because you're just afraid of suffering, and you want to do whatever you can to avoid that. And so a lot of ways that comes out practically, you will see active worship sites very frequently. There are large idols everywhere, large statues of Buddha, and they will offer offerings to the Buddha, and there will be monks there that you can have bless you and offer incense. And there are these spirit houses that are in every home and business pretty much that you come to in Cambodia that's Buddhist. But they have this idea that everything has a spirit, and so your house has a spirit, and so they offer something to their house spirit every morning to keep peace in their environment. So this is the spirit house at the coffee shop that I would stop at in the morning on my way to work, and she's offered her morning shots of espresso to her house spirit. But the difficult thing about sharing the gospel in this culture is that to give up Buddhism, you're giving up a huge part of your culture. You're giving up something that has meant something to your family. You're giving up something that is deeply integrated into weddings and funerals and every aspect of daily life. And you're also giving up this mindset that you're doing things to keep yourself safe. You're doing things to keep yourself ending suffering. And so you have to give up this ritualistic lifestyle and rest in Jesus, which can be really difficult to come to. Another thing that's important to understand in Cambodia is the Khmer Rouge. So this was a communist regime from 1975 to 1979 that ruled Cambodia, and up to 2 million people died. This is where I spent my first day in Cambodia at S21, the Genocide Museum. And I have never wanted to hop on a plane and go back home faster because I was like, get me out of here. But essentially, it's very similar in a lot of ways to the Holocaust. It was a mass genocide that has really impacted their nation. And so when you go and you see that their education system is way behind, their politics is way behind, and their economy is way behind, this helps you to realize why, because they went through a really horrific time and they're still recovering. Okay, on to some more lighthearted topics. So a few other cultural things. When you enter a building, you take off your shoes. So I did get to teach barefoot. I'm in favor. I'm in support. Respect for your elders is a really integral part of their culture. So when you say hello to someone, you say "so sedai," but if you are talking to someone older than you, you say "jomrim stoa" with a little, you hit one of these. That's just a part of their culture, is respect for your elders. And instead of teaching, we teach our kids like how to say like mom and dad first, but like they're over here like "jomrim stoa," like teaching their kids how to say that, because that's the first thing they'll be saying to anyone. Another huge part of culture for them is that the United States is a very individualistic culture, so it's definitely like, I'm worried about my success, I'm worried about like myself, and I have my own personal bubble, and I have things that belong to just me, but it's not really like that there. So if something is yours, it's not yours, it's ours. Whoever you're with, whoever, like your family, like you share things. And so, like for example, I would go into like the teacher workroom, and they would be having lunch, and there's like these teachers on the floor, and they just brought all their food and like spread it out, and then they all just share. There's no like, this is my lunch, this is my lunch, this is our lunch. And like the kids would come and get on the tuk-tuk to go to the center, and they would have like, they would grab a snack, but then they hop on, and like 4 other kids are grabbing part of their snack, because like without even asking, it's just like, oh, this is our snack. So it's just a different way of viewing things that took a little bit of time to get adjusted to. I thought I would share some food, because I think there's been a common misconception that I was probably starving, but there really was good food. So these are some common Cambodian foods. So fish amon, we made this and it was so much fun. But it's made from snakehead fish, and it has like you mix it with other things, and then you cook it in banana leaves. And then beef lo'la is like a lime pepper beef. Kutev, I think, is really interesting, because they eat noodles for breakfast. And, I really thought like this would be a culture where there's a lot of like cold food, because it's like the hottest place I've ever been. But they eat soup all the time. So kudos to them, I guess. This is papaya salad. Let me tell you, when I ordered this, I was kind of thinking like, oh, this is going to be a nice, refreshing like salad with fruit, because papaya, But this is unripe papaya, shredded, and then there's some boiled pork skin in there, and some fermented fish paste, and some like garlic and lime, and all kinds of random things in there. Not exactly what I was envisioning. And then this is kind of like a rice porridge that's really common, and then they just throw whatever vegetables are in season in there, and then you can add your own vegetables if you want, and some chili, because why wouldn't you want chili on everything you eat? And then these are some really common foods you can find on the street or at the market. So those noodles, I would go and there's just a cart and it has piles of noodles and like vegetables, and there's like flies everywhere and like, all the fun things. And then you just kind of point to whatever noodle you want, and then they just like cook it for you in their little skillet right there on the side of the road. But it was really good. It was really good. And then they like to make a lot of things in banana leaves. So there's a lot of rice dishes especially. So this is a dessert. It's rice with cinnamon and coconut. And then they also, this is like a very common snack, but they always warn you not to eat too much because it'll give you a stomach. So they eat unripe or sour fruit and dip it in like a spicy like chili salt. Tasty. Oh, and probably the weirdest thing I ate would have been a baby duck egg and chicken foot salad. Delicious. My transportation, a lot of you knew, I think, was going to be a bike. So this was my bike. I'm afraid the basket looks a lot worse than that now. No, she's a little worse for the wear, but it's okay. So I rode everywhere on my bike, which everywhere was pretty much like within a mile of me, so it was pretty easy. And then, but I was kind of like the only person on a bike, really. There were a few other people on a bike, but like everyone else drives a moto. So traffic is the most interesting thing because the only thing you need to drive a moto is a moto. You don't need a license, and you should probably wear a helmet if it's like from 9 to 5 when the police are out, otherwise you're fine. Or the weekend, because I don't work on the weekend either, so you're safe then. Yeah, but yeah, so because no one's gone to driver's school and gotten a license, driving can be really interesting over there. So I didn't think I was going to survive, actually. The first day I was there, I was like, how do you navigate this? I have no idea, but we got used to it. So the main rule is watch out for whatever's in front of you. So stop signs, we don't know what those are. Traffic lights, those are great suggestions. A great reminder to just slow down and look where you're going. But like, you know, you kind of just get to choose what traffic laws you follow and which ones you don't. So that's always fun. So you just watch whatever's in front of you and make sure you don't hit them, and that's about all. Whenever I couldn't ride my bike somewhere, there are these really handy tuk-tuk drivers. This is a tuk-tuk. This is a bigger one in the city that we rode on, but this pass app is what I rode in most of the time. So I just have an app on my phone, and I would just hire the tuk-tuk and then like put in the address that I wanted it to take me to, and they just come pick me up and take me there. So that was really nice. And I had a really kind tuk-tuk driver who helped me whenever I put in the wrong address, and he still knew where I needed to go, so it was great. Uh-oh, frozen. Oh, there it went, okay. This is where I lived while I was there. So I had like an apartment. This picture on the left is kind of like the little neighborhood area that was owned by this woman on the right, and then that was my little apartment. I can't pronounce her name, but she goes by Landlord Mommy anyway, so that's what we call her because she takes really good care of us. I was sick one day. I was really hoping it wouldn't happen to me, but it did, and I got ridiculously sick, and I went and asked her for a thermometer because Heidi told me, you know, if you have a fever, maybe we should go check that out. So I was like, okay, I'll go see if I have a fever. And she said, I don't have one of those, but she was like, you know, when Cambodians are hot, we drink coconut water. And I was like, okay, great. And I was like, where can I find some? And she said, I'll get you some. And I said, okay, awesome. So then I go back to my house, back to the AC, and then she knocks on my door a little bit later, and she has 2 of the fakest coconuts I have ever seen with straws sticking out of them. I was like, thanks. It did. Oh my goodness. It's like, yeah, it's like miracle water. It's like, it's so good for you when you're sick. I put the lucky symbol on here just so we knew that I did have somewhere to go for groceries that wasn't this. I did have a supermarket. It was kind of like an Aldi. It was kind of small. It had the basic groceries. And so I did get my meat there because I wasn't going to brave whatever is going on here for meat. But I did get my fruits and vegetables at the market, which was super fun. You know, we figured it out even though we don't speak the same language. But it's, you kind of just grab whatever you want and put it in the basket, and they just weigh it, and then they tell you the price. But there's no fixed pricing, so they just get to make up their own price, which is great, except like, you know, I don't know how much things are supposed to cost, so I probably got price gouged a little bit, but that's okay. This is my veggie lady. Okay, so what is Roots of Grace and what do they do? So Roots of Grace basically targets poor villages where families don't necessarily have the resources to send their kids to school. There's no law in Cambodia that you have to send your kids to school. So they could just never get an education. And so then they're stuck in this poverty cycle of like trying to make ends meet. And a lot of times those families who are in a poverty situation are just trying to survive. And sending their kids to school would mean buying uniforms and getting them up in the morning and getting them like bathed and getting them in a uniform and then transporting them to school somehow because there's no like public transportation for that. And then buying their books and all of those things. So for someone who is just barely able to like put food on the table, that's kind of really difficult. So Roots of Grace really approaches those families with a holistic approach. And so the services that they offer, they have several different programs, and they provide programs for the whole family. So there is an institute where women can learn how to read and write. There is, at the center, there is kind of a school situation that I'll explain later. There is a vocational training program for men, and there's like a dorm service. So they have dorms where university and high school students who are in Battambang to study can stay there, and they get guidance counseling, and they have like dorm parents, and they learn about the Bible, and they learn English. So that's just kind of a brief overview. This is the campus of Roots of Grace. So in the center here, this big area is where the staff would gather. We would gather every morning in a circle at 7 a.m. and we would have like an hour-long Bible study and prayer to start the day. And then later in the day, it becomes the lunchroom. And then after that, it becomes recess, the recess area. And then after that, all of those chairs and tables will get moved to the classrooms and they become used in the classrooms. The rooms up here are like, there's an admin room, and then there's my like work room, the teacher work room, and then like the room where I was able to work and kind of like work on things. And then these are just the kids' shoes. I forgot to take a picture of their uniforms, but this is just them playing at recess. They don't really have a lot of playground equipment or anything, so they make up a lot of their own games. We played a lot of hide and seek. These are the classrooms in both pictures. So I was able to teach in both kinds of classroom. So this is what I was doing while I was there. So Roots of Grace Students is a program where essentially Roots of Grace has their own tuk-tuk drivers, and they will go out at like 5:30 in the morning, and they'll pick up the kids from the village, and they will transport them to the center. They will get them a shower if they need it, breakfast, they'll get them changed in their uniforms for the day, and then they'll transport them to school. And then school in Cambodia is only from like 7 to 11, or 8 to 11, I'm not sure. But it's only in the morning, and so then they go and pick them up at 11 and take them back to the center. So instead of like just sending them back into the village for the afternoon to do like who knows what, they bring them back and they get them changed back into regular clothes, they give them lunch, and then they have they keep them until 3, and so they have an hour of homework, an hour of Bible, and an hour of English. And so I was with one of the teachers who taught English during this time. And so my role was kind of to co-teach with him and to bring more activities and engagement into the classroom, because they have a very rote learning style. So he would say something, write something, they'd write it down and say it back to him, is kind of how they were learning English. And so each day I would look at the curriculum and look at kind of what they're going to be learning for the day, and just create activities to bring more engagement into the classroom and get students working together instead of just like writing down what's on the board. This is my little class. The farm, I have such a special place in my heart for the farm because the 2 women who are in charge of it, Kimmy and Sin, are 2 sisters on staff at Roots of Grace, and they actually grew up in an orphanage because their father passed away and their mother couldn't take care of them. She was in like a really deep in poverty, and like when they went to visit her, they wouldn't eat at the orphanage, but they would take their food and like to feed their mother when they went to visit her. So they come from a really like rough background, and that could have been their story too, like trying to survive like their mother, but they're in this beautiful place now where like Sin has a family and Kim is engaged, and not only are they like providing for their own kids, but they also have like all of these kids, neighborhood kids, and they just invite them to come learn English. And so how this came about is they have this property, and they realized like they weren't using it, and they didn't know their neighbors. And so they said, we want to know our community, And so they built these structures, these 2 little structures that they use as classrooms, and they just invited kids from the community to come. And so 3 days a week they learn English, and then 1 day a week they have like sort of like a VBS. They have like a Bible story and a game, maybe a craft, and they have snacks, and they do worship. And so yeah, that's just something really beautiful, and it really like stuck out to me that like you can, no matter where you are, you can serve your community. And so it just came from a heart of like, we want to know our community, and I was like, like we want to know our community, and we want to serve our community. And so they have such a big impact just by having a willing heart. Neri Klahan was the Women's Institute where they learned how to read. And so I got to help watch their kids while they were learning how to read. I thought this was really cool because the tuk-tuk drivers would actually go and get the women and transport them here, and then we would watch their kids. And so it's like a lot of obstacles that would have been like problems for them, like they removed those as well. And so hopefully like these women will have a second chance to like rebuild and to do something different and maybe get a better job and like support their families. This was a village Bible study. So this is something else that Roots of Grace does. They have, in the villages that they are involved in, they also have a Bible study that the people they serve can go to. And so we would go in the morning, and there's like, I think there's several, maybe each day, but there's definitely one a day. And they're just in the different villages. And so this is kind of an example of like a home, of what a home would look like. But this one has a nice tile floor. Some of them have like purely dirt floors, and that's their mattress that they would sleep on. And then there's like a little cooking area in the back. This is definitely like, this is kind of a cleanish environment, but there were homes that I saw that were completely like dirt floors, and like there would be children running around, and like some of them would be like have no clothes on, and like there would be chickens and like whatever animals and bugs and just everything running around their house. Just a very like dirty environment. But I love that they go and they meet them in their homes. They don't like require them to come somewhere, but they just go and they share the gospel with them. And not only that, but sometimes we would show up and someone would be like, oh, like we can't do it today, and they'd be like, oh, okay, we'll pray for you, and then we'll see you next week. Or they would be sick, or their kids would be like running around acting absolutely wild, and like the parents would be talking, and like you couldn't really hear what the person doing the Bible study was saying, but they just showed so much grace. Like they never like said anything unkind. They never were like, man, like they seriously didn't show up, like we do this every week, but they were just like, oh, okay, like they're busy, like we'll come back next week. Like they showed so much grace to them and met them where they were at, which I thought was really cool. This is the dorm ministry, where they live at the dorm and they learn English in the evening. And so I loved doing that. It was so much fun. I got to go in twice a week and just help them learn English. This is Teacher Benjamin, and he does a great job leading. He's currently standing on like 3 chairs that he fell off of. It's okay. But he was really an encouragement to me because he was just so positive and just radiated like the joy of the Lord. But then when we were in small group one day, he kind of shared like some financial struggles he's having, and like he's struggling to make ends meet, and him and his wife are really anxious about it. And I was just like, wow, like you wouldn't know that. Like you wouldn't know what he's dealing with because he has so much joy. And this was Sophie Moy. So like, this is Sin again, and she is once again just inviting people over. So at her own home, every Friday, she just invites all of these kids, and they just come and they have worship, and they learn about Jesus, and they have a craft and a game and a snack, and they just have a great time. And she invites them, like her little carport area is just open all the time, so after school they can come play so that she knows that they have a safe place to play and they're not out doing things, and have some supervision. So what did God teach me during this time? Something that I definitely learned was how he is a provider, because it's really easy to look around and like see like this is a really like dirty situation. There are a lot of people like in poverty, and there are a lot of people like just in this bondage of Buddhism. Like you just like literally you just go into town and you see people offering things like to an idol, and you just realize like this is a really tough situation, and it seems like impossible because when you go in a home that's just like stuck in this situation, you're like, wow, like they could be like this forever. They could always just be struggling to make ends meet. But the Lord, like, seeing, like, especially through the staff, just hearing their stories of, like, how the Lord has brought them through difficult times, like, just reminded me that these things are obstacles to us, but they're not obstacles to God, and He's able to provide in the middle of really difficult situations. It also just, like, really cemented, like, how worthy God is, because you see this contrast of, like, these people who are offering something to an idol that is never going to respond to them, and they're just hoping that they are able to someday, like, to be reborn in another life with more, like, wealth. And on the other hand, like, you have this amazing staff that are showing up every morning and they're praising the Lord, and the Lord has just really come through for them. And it just reminded me, like, He is Creator, He is Savior, and He's the only one, like, worthy of our praise. Something else that I really learned was the importance of trusting God's plan and His timing. So that's something kind of hard for me in my season of life, because I just you just don't really know what's next. And so I was kind of, in the middle of applying for jobs while I was over there and just trying to navigate all of that. And there was a staff member named Gretchen who was really encouraging to me. She is one of, like, the head, like, one of the leaders at Roots of Grace. She's one of the top staff, and she's over a whole department. And she's just so, like, cheerful and has such a pure heart and so much joy, and she just, like, really wants people to know the Lord. And she sat down with me one day and just told me her story, and it was, like, absolutely shocking, because you never would have known, like, what she had come from. And she had come from, like, a life where her husband had left her, and, like, she was completely devastated, and she had a baby. She didn't know how she was going to provide for her child, and she ended up becoming a teacher at Roots of Grace. And then she ended up, like, they ended up saying, like, hey, we would love to put you in this position, like a higher position. And she was like, I am not at all qualified for that. Like, I am not at all fit for that. And then she took the position. She was like, if it's from the Lord, like, I'll take it. And she also found, like, a husband who loves her and takes care of her, and she has another baby, and she has, like, this beautiful family and an amazing job. And she just told me the whole time she was telling me this story, she was like, my husband is from God. And she was like, my job is from God. And she was like, if I need something else, I know that it's going to come from God. And it was just a really good reminder that, like, He's the one who's going to make it happen in His timing. This rainbow was just, like, such a sweet reminder to me of God's, like, promises, because I was just not having, like, the absolute best day, and then I saw the rainbow and I was like, oh, that's, like, such a sweet reminder. But then I turned, like, another corner and I saw there was a double rainbow, and it was just like I immediately heard, like, I've never broken a promise. And I was like, you're so right. Like, the promises of Scripture are always true, and, like, we can stand on them no matter how we're feeling or what our situation is looking like. And then lastly, just the importance of investing in your community, because I saw, like, such an impact that each of these staff members are having. They're just walking in obedience, they're just walking in faithfulness, and I know that they don't think that they're having an impact, but they really are. And it just reminded me that we all can have the same impact, and we all do have the same impact by just choosing to show up faithfully to what God has for us each day. And by asking the question, being willing to ask the question of, like, Lord, how do you want me to serve my community, and how do you want to use me in this area? So just a few, like, things to part with. It's just kind of like an encouragement and a challenge of how can you show the love of Jesus where He's placed you, because He's given you a unique skill set. Like, He gave Sin and Kimmy, like, a place, like a piece of land, and they turned that into a place where kids could gather and they could learn about Jesus. And He gave them, like, a home, and they invited kids there so they could play safely. And so, like, just what has God given you, and maybe just asking and being aware of, like, the Lord wants you to use that for something, and He has a really cool plan for it. I also just want to ask you, if you think about it, to just pray for Cambodia and Roots of Grace. Like, it is a very dark environment sometimes, just the amount of, like, the pervasiveness of the Buddhist culture, and just the things that people are facing. But they're definitely believers who are believing for their country, and they are excited and expected to see what God is going to do. And so, yeah, just keep them in your prayers, and their work in your prayers. And then just a reminder that you are also a messenger of hope. Like, walking into the darkness can feel really discouraging, and, like, wow, like, this is really, really, really hard. But the truth is that you have the message of hope with you, and you have the light of Christ with you, and so you have something to bring to the darkness. So that's all I had to share. Does anyone have any questions that you'd like to ask? You're free to ask me anything anytime, but if anyone has any questions right now that you want to ask, just bring them on your heart.
What was your age group that you taught that helped you the English to?
Okay, so for Roots of Grace students, it was like 10 to 12, and then high school. I had like a high school class. And then at the farm, it was kind of all ages. Yes.
Do you understand that English?
You know, not a lot. Not really. So I learned a little, like a few Khmer phrases to be able to like communicate with them. And then they had a little bit of English, and so between that we could kind of communicate, and then if we needed to, like one of the teachers could always like step in and translate for us.
What is the national language?
Their language is Khmer, which is only a Cambodian language. So they only speak it in Cambodia, nowhere else. Yeah. And it's a very difficult language.
And Google Translate doesn't help, right?
Yeah, Google Translate can be a little bit murky because there's not a lot of literal translations. So, for example, there's this phrase that they like to add, they like to say it all the time, and the literal translation of it is like, "Have you had rice yet?" But like what it means is like, "Have you had lunch yet?" Like, "Are you taking care of yourself?" And like they'll ask it to you because like, and I got asked this all the time when I first got there. They were like, "Have you had lunch yet?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm going to in a little bit." And like, you know, I think for us, we're like, you know, if someone asks us, "Have we had lunch yet?" They're gonna be like, "Oh, do you want to go grab lunch?" Like that was my thinking. But then Rajni told me, she was like, "One thing that we really like to do is ask if you've had lunch yet." And I was like, "Yeah, I can tell." And I was like, what's that about? And she's like, "Well, it doesn't mean that someone's gonna go buy you lunch." And I was like, "That's good to know." She was like, "It means like, it's just their way of asking, like, how are you? Like, are you taking care of yourself?" Like, just kind of a way of showing concern. So I got asked that like 3 times a day.
So how hot was it?
It was always in the 90s. A couple of days I checked the weather, it feels like 115. Those were like on the hotter days. Yeah, the weather we've been having here is very comparable, I would say. Yeah.
Is there like a upper class and lower class? And like what I'm asking, if Buddhism says, you know, do good and good will come back. So what about and also the group sharing thing, how does it fit within their Buddhism to not share the poor people? Or do you
No, I see what you're saying. Are you asking like, is there a higher class and lower class, like financially, like poverty-wise? Definitely. Yeah. And they definitely, one thing they do give is to the monks. They give, like, if a monk comes to your house, like, you give money to them as, like, a way of, like earning favor. But that's a great question. I don't know about, like, giving to the poor as a part of Buddhism. Yeah.
Would a higher class and a lower class understand? If they all get on, you were saying that snack and everybody shares. Would the higher class and the lower class be able to eat the same snack?
I don't know. See, the thing is, a lot of it is like family. You are with your family, and so I don't know that a higher class and a lower class would really be together a lot. But like, for example, at weddings, everyone is invited to a wedding. Everyone that you know is invited to your wedding. Like anybody that you could possibly think of comes to your wedding. Not to the ceremony, but to the reception. And so I think it's just really a sharing culture within everything, because to get food at the reception, you just find a table and you have to make 10. And so you have to make a group of 10 before you can get anything to eat. And so like people, like they just sit down with random people. Like you just sit down with anybody, and then you have a great time, you get your food, like all 5 courses of it. It's just definitely a sharing culture in every aspect, I would say.
Can you move from table to table then?
I'm not sure about that.
How about the funeral?
Funerals and weddings were a huge cultural thing. That was something that really shocked me, because there's not really a funeral home or like a wedding venue, but it takes place right at your house. And so for like a wedding, you would just set up the giant wedding tent right at the bride's house. And for a funeral, the funeral would be set up on the street right in front of the family's home. there would be someone, like one of your family members has to be, you have like a schedule and someone has to be with the corpse at all times to keep it company, I guess. And then at some point during the funeral ceremony, the corpse is cremated. Like pretty much everyone is cremated, and it happens right there on the street. Yeah, so it's an interesting aspect of life.
Are they in a box?
Yeah, they're in something, I believe. Yes. But the music is so loud. I heard funerals all the time at my house, and I have no idea where they were. But they were like, the music that they play is so loud for funerals and weddings. And one time, someone asked one of our staff, they were like, so why is the music so loud all the time? And they're like, well, so everyone can enjoy it. And we're like, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. No. It's not. Especially the funeral music. I think it sounds creepy, but
Do they play instruments like that's what they make the music up, or
it's a giant speaker. Yeah. And it's all the same music from what I can tell. It's like, it sounds the same to me anyway. I don't know.
funeral music and when
Yeah. Yes, very similar. Yes. Yeah. So sometimes you would come to go down a street and like it would just be blocked off because there's a funeral on the street today.
This is switching gears a little bit, back to the staff. How is
That is a great question. Okay, so the staff, I didn't mention this, but the staff, there are two missionaries, Chris and Heidi, that founded Roots of Grace. They are funded through a missions organization, so they have a sending organization. And then there are a couple other missionaries through the organization. So there's Victor and Carol, and they're American missionaries, and they're also through an organization. And then there's Adrienne, she's from New Zealand, and she was also from an organization. The rest of the staff, which is about like 40 to 50 people, they're all Cambodian. So like the people who actually are in the day-to-day activities, who are teaching, who are going out into the villages, who are like doing all of the things, are Cambodian. So, and like the leadership is really cool, the leadership structure is really cool, so everyone has someone that they're accountable to, including Chris and Heidi. That's a great question. They're nonprofit. They're not through a missions organization, I don't think.
So they don't have other jobs?
No, they're funded. That's a really good question. They are paid. Like they are paid a salary through Roots of Grace, but I don't know where that money comes from.
Probably a church organization somewhere.
Probably, yeah.
So these people that go out to homes and visit, they're Cambodian as well.
Yes.
So does that give them maybe that understanding of being casual and easygoing with people?
Yes. Yeah. They're able to interact so much better because they speak the language fluently. They've grown up in Cambodia. They know the culture. They know what's expected and what's not. What's like acceptable and what's not. Yeah. They're able to engage on a totally different level.
they bring somebody like you in frequently?
Yeah, they have interns very frequently. So while I was there, one intern had just left, and then they had 3 interns there while I was there, and then one of them left during my time. Well, they all left actually during my time, but they had been there for about 8 months. So they were like longer interns. So they're from Germany, and there's like an organization through Germany where you can do like a gap year after high school, and you can just go on a mission, like a mission trip for your gap year. So I think that's really cool. So that's what they got to do.
So there's different lengths of time you can like choose your internship.
Yes. Yeah. But we were talking about it while I was there, and they're thinking about like extending the minimum time because they told me like a minimum of 6 weeks. So that's what I chose was 6 weeks. But we co-decided that you've got to stay longer because there's just so much to actually be able to like give, like you're just receiving information and you're just like learning the culture and learning a little bit of a language and getting accustomed to the staff and like just starting to build friendships and relationships, and then you leave. And so I think to actually like be able to give and contribute to the organization and to be able to learn more of the language, to engage with more people, I think a longer internship would definitely be more beneficial.
What is that, running under
The government, I believe it's like a parliament situation They have a king, so I think they're mostly run by their parliament, but I don't know a lot about the government. Yeah, they're in Asia, in Southeast Asia.
Did you find anything in the way of persecution with the Buddhism versus Christianity?
No, not really. If like someone, like if a mom came up to us or like wanted like us to contribute to them, we would just say no, we're Christian, and they'd be like, oh, okay. So like that's really nice. Like it's acceptable. It's just something that like one of my friends near today, she used to be Buddhist and she converted to Christianity, and so she was telling me like, I was like, I totally just lost my train of thought.
Are the people very receptive?
Yes. Well, they're receptive of Christians, but like Christianity itself, that's where I was going with that, is that they see it as like, she said, like, I saw it as like a white person religion. She was like, that's the American religion, this is the Khmer religion. Like, this is our religion, this is what we believe. And like, so like, it's their whole family, you know, whole families are Buddhist, and so to leave that behind, you're leaving behind like your family culture. And so like, I went to a wedding where the parents, both sets of parents were Buddhist, but the people getting married were Christian. And so they were like, we don't want to include Buddhist practices in our wedding, but they were very, like, those are things that are just part of the Cambodian wedding. And so I think, you know, the family was not very happy because like, that's Cambodian, that's what we do. And so they weren't really appreciative of like, getting rid of the Buddhist Christians. So I would say like, they're receptive of Christians, and like some people are really receptive of the gospel, but I think there's just like a difficulty because it's so ingrained in their culture.
There would be a fear that oh no, you're going to convert to Christianity and then all of that stuff's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
That would be why they would hate so much.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. Yeah, because if you've been told like your whole life that like to avoid suffering you need to do these things, and then like Christianity is asking you to not do any of those things and to trust in something else completely, and so I just think that would probably be really difficult.
Kind of a large religion, though, that whole staff is really Christians.
Yes. Yes, it is, and it's really encouraging. And I went to a church on Sundays called Every Nation, and like, so I got to see like other Cambodian Christians, and then we would go to, I don't know if you guys have heard of YWAM, Youth with a Mission, but they have a campus in Battambang, and so we would go every Wednesday, and that's where like people who are like missionaries or like just even like believers can gather and worship and like be encouraged and be filled, and so that was really cool to see too.
So everybody there speaks the Cambodian language.
Yes.
What is the drive to learn English? Why?
I think it's just to gain more opportunities because there's a lot more like, there's not a lot of like Cambodian media, you know what I mean, like things to consume like are mostly like in English. And so if you want to like, if you want to watch anything, or if you want to be active on social media, or you want to read news that's happening in the world, like just anything outside of Cambodia, if you want to anything to do with anything outside of Cambodia, you have to learn English because no one else speaks Khmer, like no other country does.
You mentioned the children coming to supervision. A lot of those Asian countries deal with human trafficking. Children, is any
No, I didn't. Honestly, that was one of like, I was worried about safety, but like my friends were like, no, like you'll find. They're like, you'll find. This is one of the safest places you'll ever be. And I was like, okay. And so like I would go out and I would be out and like walking along the river like by myself because like there are so many other people out and about, and everyone's very considerate and kind. I found everyone to be really welcoming and warm and like just like a very inviting culture. And they all like wanted to share their culture and were excited about it. The only really crime that I found that you have to really worry about is theft, because I mean like crimes of opportunity, if they're poor, then like stealing something is going to provide an opportunity. It's not like out of malice, like, you know, or any kind of like crimes like that. I didn't really see any violence or anything like that, but just like theft is the only thing I really had to worry about.
I was thinking more of their other children, if they're so solid street, we have an opportunity to go around and sell some of their children off for slavery.
I don't think so. Yeah, I So I was on a mountain with my friend Lydia, and we were exploring, and she just is super fun and wants you to see everything and experience everything. She's the one who made me try a chicken, but I don't know. So she took me to this mountain, we climbed it, and she was like, Lydia, it's gonna be an easy climb. It's like you're just walking the river. And I was like, okay. And then it was like straight up. And I was like, wow, the river really got some incline. But we climbed to the top. And then there was this like hammock area, and we're like, okay, we need to chill for a second. So we sat and we were just like chilling in the hammocks. And then Nira was like, okay, let's go. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I hopped up, and I must have left my phone behind in the hammock. And so then we were just like trekking to this other side of the mountain, and I got my phone out to take a picture because there was a different view. And then I realized I don't have my phone. And I was like, oh no, what happened to my phone? So I was like, Nira, I don't have my phone. And she was like, that's impossible. And I was like, no, I don't have it. And she said, look again. And I was like, okay. So I looked at my bag, and I was like, it's not here. And she was like, but you keep putting it back in your bag every time you use it. I was like, I know. So where'd it go? And so then we went, she was like, let's go back to where we were. So she was like, you search here, I'll go back there. And so I searched and I couldn't find it. So I went to go meet up with her again, and she had gone and asked this group of boys, like, have you seen a phone? And they said, sister, it's up there. Because she looked up at the tree, and a monkey had my phone, and he was just gnawing on it. And then this very friendly man went to go, I guess, brave the monkey and get my phone for me. But then the monkey just dropped it, so it was all chill, and I got my phone back. And this other guy was inspecting it, making sure it was fine, and he was like, it's just the screen protector. I was like, great, thank you. And he said, the monkey couldn't use your phone because he didn't know your password. I was like, you're so right, you're so right. But then I got my phone back, and the next day, I was looking through my pictures, and I found a photo from the monkey. And no, it took a picture of the boys down below, and they were all taking a picture of him. But they're everywhere. They're like large. They're large. Yes. All sizes, really. I mean, yes, but like if you had something, they would like possibly try to steal it. So like definitely food, like you don't want to have around them. But other than that, they leave you alone for the most part. Yeah.
How'd you get along with the lizards and stuff?
The lizards, well, I had a friendly house gecko. We coexisted peacefully. But you just have like Asian house geckos in your house, and they just climb your walls, and they eat your bugs. So yeah, it's a great exchange.
Okay.
Yeah, he stayed out of my way, I stayed out of his. There were some wicked-looking lizards and snakes though that I saw. Thankfully, I didn't get too close. Kimmy was on the warpath. She took it from me, so it's all good.
Lizards and monkeys, what else do you have for wild animals?
For wild animals, I don't really know. That's the only thing I really encountered. And bugs and rats, frogs. Those are all edible. If you didn't know. Insects.
Did you try any insects?
No, I didn't. I had to offer, but I was okay.
So if you had to do over, would you choose 8 weeks or months?
Probably months. Yeah. I really loved it there. It was awesome, and I think the staff, they're just so they really pour into you, and they get to know you, and they want to make the experience amazing for you. And so I just felt like they became friends with me and got to know me, and then I just left. And so it was just man, and I got to know their culture, but I didn't really get to contribute. Didn't feel like I was really contributing much because I still had a lot to learn about the culture and language before I could really add anything, if that makes sense. So they had a teacher there that had just left, and she had come and she had written a curriculum for them. and she'd been there for like 8 months, and so she got to like learn language, engage with people, and like do something valuable while she was there. So I thought that was cool. But it was a great experience to like be able to experience another culture and like meet people who are doing like the Lord's work in missions, and like if you're wanting to go and get a feel for missions, I think something like that is a short term is a great opportunity.
So when are you going back?
Right? I know. They kept asking me that. They were like, "Are you coming back?" And I was like, "I don't know if the Lord lets me." So yeah, I would love to though.
How is the medical?
Medical is a lot cheaper than the U.S., but I don't think they have as many like options. So they have a really good medical center. There was someone that got really sick while we were there, and she got really good medical care. But I think if you really want, like, if you really need like good medical care, you fly to Thailand. Well, I guess you probably go to Vietnam or something now because we're not friends with Thailand. You're not friends with Thailand and Cambodia anymore. So because of the like war, they don't like import any products from Thailand anymore, and they don't like. I think a lot of Thai like businesses just like packed up and left because people weren't coming anymore. So yeah. Okay, if that's everything, I'll turn this stuff over.
I don't know, is it appropriate to give her an applause?